Is there an off-colony civilization, a breakaway civilization on Mars?
Well, apparently so, because I was recruited to go to it. I haven't been there. And it's funny, a lot of people who have heard of me haven't really delved into my work. Who haven't really delved into my work might confuse me for somebody that did a 20 and back there. And no, that's not the case. I was pre-targeted, though, to go to Mars with the target date being 2012. And this connects somehow to alternative 3 scenario that was proposed to the Eisenhower administration. And it's considered a fictional story. There's been documentaries about it. But it's nothing that anybody has really taken seriously. But this is something that was presented along with, of course, alternatives 1 and 2. And I'll just tell you a little bit about that. Alternative 1 focused on using nuclear devices to blast holes in the stratosphere where heat and pollution could escape into space. Alternative 2 aimed to build a network of underground cities and tunnels where mankind's selected elite could survive. Along these lines, Phil Schneider mentioned that 131 deep underground military bases exist in the US, 4,000 worldwide. Alternative 3 dealt with the secret space colonization program on Mars for the same purpose as Alternative 2, which played into my experience with a failed attempted recruitment. This experience was the J-stalt that compelled me to create and claim my desired timeline scenario, Alternative 4, which is based on the organic ascension timeline and the power of the human spirit triumphing over controller forces that already exist and is what I've always felt prepared for. So, and that's what I desire. And that's what we deep down all desire. We don't need some outer authority to tell us, what the future holds. And we're constantly being bombarded with it, but it's done in sections, right? So when people talk about the first wave, well, is there going to be a second wave, a third wave, where, there is, this Agenda 2030 and different rollouts of events that take place to, engineer this timeline. We think of 9/11 or all these particular events that take place that are leading us down this course where these trigger events and fear tactics are kind of hooking us into this potential apocalyptic, scenario or new world order, whatever you want to call it. So Alternative 3 had to do with, in light of this being the trajectory that they want to take humanity down, compromising the surface humans in whatever way, these are the ones that we're facing. But was there something different along the way? Well, it's sort of like when they pull out plan A, B, C, D, E. There's always like something that they'll come together and decide, okay, this will be our next attempt to try and sabotage the human race. How many different cards they're going to play and which ones they play, I don't know. They have a deck and there are reasons behind maybe the ones that they choose. But I really feel Eisenhower's administration and, the proposed alternatives have a lot to do with maybe how this has shifted. And we're getting something a little bit different than would have been if the Alternative 3 scenario was more alive and more something that was taking place. It's not to say that that alternative is gone, because there are colonies on Mars and there's activity on Mars. People have done 20 and backs and things like that. But it's slowly kind of disintegrating as being such a possibility that it's in the unknown realms of not being accessible to humans. So whistleblowers, experiencers, secret space program participants, me, and exposing my recruitment to Mars definitely has shifted the timeline, because if we didn't know all of that, we wouldn't be working the energies based in what has been brought to light. We'd be really just in the dark, and anything in the dark doesn't give us the opportunity to make choices. So that's why disclosure has to do with exposure and getting all this information available so that we know what we're up against and know what we've been dealing with and what's hiding behind the curtain. So this Alternative 3 scenario, supposedly in Eisenhower's administration, I've been told by more than one remote viewer, and when I worked with different psychics, it's become a common theme that I helped in Eisenhower's administration with the Venusians to warn him about the Greys and about some things that he ended up being blamed for, and to help him and that administration set up some things as a counteraction to the ICC Nazi Draco Alliance agenda. That being the Earth Alliance, the White Hats, and Ike's Force, and also his connection with a group of star beings that spoke about a migration of souls coming in that would be the change that we want to see, that it wasn't going to come from the governments, that there would be a group of us, and not just in this particular migration, but in many at different stages along the way. But this would be a huge one in 1952. And that was really to offset an unconditional surrender agreement that took place under Truman, which was the real treaty that put everything in the hands of three-letter organizations and MJ-12 to start to use this alien tech in a negative way to create the spiritual warfare, the social engineering, and all these different tactics being used to steer things in a certain direction. So me agreeing to come in was intercepted and
Before
ended
you
up.
incarnated.
What's that?
Before you incarnated, you talking about?
Yes. So during the Eisenhower administration, supposedly I was a part of helping that administration as a guide. Like, and I can't say for certain, but I've been told this more than once. So I don't focus that part so much on when I share this, but just to shed light on the fact that I do have a book that was given to me by a Native American woman that did say that Eisenhower was told that a family member would come in to expose the truth that his speech warned us about. And that it was from the Guardians that this member of the family would come in. And when the book was handed to me, the woman said, they're talking about you because you're exposing all this stuff in this alternative 3 and this Mars recruitment and blah, blah, blah. So I have the ebook that I was given, and it never got published, but it talks about the star beings Eisenhower was in communication with, the migration of souls that came in, and one, coming into his family as well. And that's why we all work together. We all have different positions. We all have different missions. And so because that was intercepted and because they knew that this was going to happen, there's been a mass targeting on all of us that have come in to bring about truth, to expose things that they don't want us to know. So there's sort of a catch-22, or I don't know how you want to say it, but when they found that out, that a member of the family, or that somebody would come in as a member of the family to do this, they use looking glass technologies to come up with a plan to intercept this from happening by taking me off planet. Because this alternative 3 scenario was already set up, they decided to bring a family member in to go off planet to be used instead of be on Earth to expose these sort of things. But it was because I was targeted that it helped me to expose these sort of things, which I feel was a part of the strategy. So if they knew that I was coming in and alternative 3 had been set up to establish these Mars colonies, maybe a good way for me to do my role here was to be exposed to it, so I would know what is really going on, and I'd be able to shed light on it and begin to talk to the other individuals that have served on Mars, done the 20 and backs, that were in Ike's Force or USMC Special Section, and that have been a part of the Earth Alliance, like Dan Cooper, who I met, who's helped me to understand these things. So a lot of synchronicities, unfolded to help me to gather information, to bring about my piece to all of this. So I have my own, independent, larger picture soul journey, just like anybody else. But what I feel tasked with to assist him and his administration and the person that he is to help crush the false narratives that have placed the blame on him for signing treaties with the Greys when it actually wasn't him. It was done behind his back. So that has been very necessary, because when we look at disclosure, if we're functioning on false history, rewritten history, and deceptions, how are we going to experience disclosure without it putting us in another predicament of further enslavement or, manipulation that we don't want or need? So I just look at it like we're all working together. We're all putting out on the table everything that we've learned. We all have our different roles. We're all putting the puzzle pieces together. And so I was pre-targeted before I came in because he was told that a family member would come in. And actually, one of the defectors from the Mars recruiters told me that he was briefed about me being born. So a lot of attention has been put on me, like, okay, we're waiting for her to come in, and now that she's here, let's try and divert her. Let's try and, also trip her up. And so there's been a lot of different tactics to target, me and many, many others, and making it very, very difficult to bring this information forward. So in 2006, I was approached by a man who I thought I was meeting in an organic way, after feeling a lot of attention of weaponry on me and feeling a lot of downloads and a lot of assistance from him, Eisenhower, and other beings from a very small age, like when I was a child. And it was too much for me to process or to understand. I just didn't know like what was going on, but I was constantly, getting, downloads, and I had this inner curiosity and passion and mission to, uncover what the heck's going on, like what is happening here, and just looking at the larger picture of everything, and sort of, realizing like, okay, like I knew so much of this that I'm now expressing when I was younger, but I couldn't make sense out of it until I went through the actual experiences. But there's that sort of like being forewarned. You kind of know in your soul, this is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to be up against. But you have amnesia a bit. You're in a baby into a childhood body. There was communication coming in to warn me about what was to come. That kind of triggered that remembrance of, oh gosh, okay, this is what I'm going to be up against. This is why I'm here. So by the time I met this person, I knew to not go along with what he was presenting. But through the use of looking glass technologies, they located him and I in a past life, and they knew that we had a union. So they were able to use him as bait, because they had pulled him into this MyLab situation and began to control him and give him this false abduction experience and artificial telepathy to make him feel like a hero in pushing this whole let's go to Mars scenario within this group called the Aviary, which is connected to MJ12. So they were kind of using him and set him up to meet me. And I thought I was meeting him in an organic way. We ended up getting together, but he was going to these secret meetings, and I was asking questions about it. And I'm not telling the story very well due to exhaustion, and I've told the story so many times.
I'm following you though. You're telling it pretty well.
Okay, good. So, and they were monitoring like my reactions. So when I started to be like, no, they would kind of like, all right, let's kind of let that issue go. Let them cultivate the love, because that is what's going to make her want to go wherever he goes. So they would kind of be quiet for a while, and the topic wouldn't be brought up to the point where we ended up moving in together. And then the topic came back up. They're like, oh, now we got her. And I had my small kids, and, got pretty intense about, we need to go to Mars and this and that. And as I was hearing about this, I was taking note of all the names that were coming up and all the people he was talking to, the email exchanges. And I began to dig real deep. And I was just following that intuition, like, as much as it seems like this is for your protection and this and that, we got to leave the earth and evacuate. And to a certain degree, okay, yes, it makes sense to protect the human genome in the event of catastrophic events. We've gone through that in history before. It makes sense. But here's what's wrong. We're dealing with chemtrails. We're dealing with geoengineering. We're dealing with a lot of weaponry that engineers and simulates and produces catastrophic events that are not natural. These weapons need to be called out. This agenda is not necessary, because we are on a Mother Earth that is taking us into ascension. And that is what I was way more prepared with coming in, as what my mission and role is, to be a part of this with many others that understand this, that, but I had to kind of get through a major blocking point to why that would be difficult for all of us. And so many people that have been experiencers in the SSPs, and many individuals that have had this level of targeting, we've all had to just come to grips with that and expose it, to dismantle the facade that it was presented to us as. So I didn't go through the trauma-based mind control. I wasn't in any of these projects. Eisenhower wasn't involved in any of the SRA or Illuminati stuff. But it was like going to be a family member that would come through saying things that my aunts and uncles and mother couldn't, because it had to skip a generation. So like, it seemed like the timing would be right. And I don't know why I was picked or why I volunteered. Sometimes I'm like, oh man, what was I thinking? But it's been to, just shed light on timelines are being engineered. We are being led to believe things that we're choosing to consent to because it seems like the right thing to do, because that's what we're being told. And this is where, my own awakening of my own truth frequency, really needed to come in, because what do I have to go on except for my gut instinct, except for the dreams that I'm having, except for the guidance that I'm getting, except for, the the uh the strong and clear messages coming from my higher self telling me what I need to do, and trusting that in order to say, I cannot go, and there's no way I'm going to go, to the point where they said, well, if you don't, we're going to take you anyway. And so this is very not well told, but doing the best I can. I eventually, refused, told him about this dream I had and how I had a choice, and it was coming from like a voice from the sky, like God, and I was either going to be taken off in a ship and go to Mars, or be here on Earth. And I chose Earth, and I landed, and there's this planetary alignment, and everything started to glow, and the energy was, you made the right choice, or it just felt peace in my heart. And I woke up, and when I told him, they knew, because they were monitoring everything, and he told me that, they began to, realize, like, all right, we don't have her, we can't capture her. And he began to panic and freak out. We ended up breaking up. All sorts of mayhem began to happen. One time he unplugged all our devices, all the batteries of our computer, our cell phones, everything electronic in any part of our home or in the vicinity, or the home that I had moved into, because I was right down the street. I couldn't live with him anymore. And he said, this is why you're targeted. When you thought we met organically, you were a mission. I was tasked with finding you there to draw you in. And I don't know if I can trust these folks, but I can only tell you, and just, that's all that you need to know. Then he plugged everything back in, denied he ever said anything. But that was enough for me to know, wow, okay, I was a mission. I thought I just met him in a natural way. We probably would have met in a natural way, but what they did was intercept it, use looking glass technologies to locate us, so that they could control the way that we met, so that they could take a couple that would naturally come together, and take it off planet to be used, and to reseed something there on Mars. Now, it doesn't mean that there isn't a part of that agenda that makes some kind of sense, but that is not why I came in. And so I feel like this agreement with Eisenhower to come into this family was to face it head on, and to be given that choice. They didn't know what I was going to do. Maybe she will go along with it, but that I would be given the guidance and the protection and the intuitive soul memory of that agreement, to be able to handle this targeting and this recruitment, and the partner coming in, and the personal relationship and the emotions that come with that, and the children, to not go in that direction, and to bring as much to light about what I understood as possible. And this is why, all my presentations are about the organic ascension timeline, because the thing in calling this out, along with many others, is that this alternative 3 scenario is like what would mean if some go off planet and some go into underground bases. What does that mean for surface Earth? They're kept in the dark. They don't know about the dark technologies and the artificial timelines. They're just going along with like whatever catastrophic event. They're just voting people into office. They're part of this matrix game, and none of this is coming to the surface for people to, have an awakening. So this great awakening is part of the organic, corrections of creation for us to experience, but it has to come through us in breaking down the programs and the control mechanisms that would hijack us away from experiencing something that the planetary system is creating for herself, right? You can't overtake, Mother Earth, but you can compromise an planet and explode it. But if we can be a part of this healing process, we can help anchor in this energy. We can help, protect this, physical planet by bringing in, souls that are a part of the higher expressions of ourself before we fall into this lower density. And that's where the starseeds come in. Starseed missions, like you and others that you bring into this community. We all came in together to do exactly what we're doing. And your platform and what you do is the greatest space holder I know that is bringing together the team. That is this migration that he was talking about, or that the star beings were talking about. So that's what's so brilliant about you, is because it's like, without Portal to Ascension, how would we be having these conversations? I can't think of a more powerful archive of speakers and information, and you holding the ground for so much love and unity and just this Christ consciousness. So, what a role that you're playing, right? So we all have our particular roles and we're doing it.
I never heard the whole story like that, because when we started working together, I just knew about that you'd been recruited for the Mars program, and that was all I knew. And then we just got into all the work. That's the history, right? And the history defined you in order for you to start doing your work. And then we just went right into what's the next step. You know what I mean? So I really appreciate that you had an opportunity to tell me this today. What year was this? When was like the heat of this?
It was 2006, but the targeting has been like my whole life. Very, very
Yeah, that
difficult.
yeah,
Yeah.
was
And then when I finally was like, oh, I just cannot like create anything. It's just, there's this energy on me. And it was wild that I ended up at a clairvoyant institute. I was going to go to an herbal school, but they didn't have enough applicants. And I just kind of bumped into this psychic institute, and some of the psychic women that had been there for years, like helped me to understand what was going on. They helped me to understand the psychotronic weapons, the targeting.
mhm.
I thought it was like karma. I'm like, what have I done to deserve like all this madness? Like, no. Like the whole other thing is going on here. And it. It's just almost like, I think a lot of us find that it's almost too hard to believe. So we it's hard to really like take seriously, but that's more like my surface personality, just because it's not anything I can easily talk about, but deep in my soul, I absolutely take it seriously. It's like all I know. It's all I came in here for. But, am I able to communicate it to my high school friends or my parents? No, I just kind of like, yeah, Laura's crazy. It's like, yep, sure. But I know deep down, but I might kind of play along because it's a lot easier than like, no, sit down, let me tell you about it. It's like, no, it's not the right time. I got to write a book, got to find my people, that are all doing it. Because I know that, yeah, where is that going to lead? They're going to force some medication on me, take me to a loony bin. And I was even thinking like, because it does sound crazy. And I wanted to, be a skeptic to myself. I'm not just going to like ride this like it's the truth, but it proved itself to me because I knew all this as a child. And I was just following my instinct, my curiosity, and my intuition. And I was getting the downloads, and I was like, all right, all right. But I was finding a neutrality to it so I wouldn't get attached to it. But when enough came my way through synchronicities to say, yes, this is real, this is true, this is what's happening, when I was confronted with the recruitment and with the person, I was that much more solid in myself to know how to handle it. Without that validation, it might have been a little bit more difficult, but it was fortunate that I ran into the people that I did to really, help me before it came along. Because even the Clairvoyant Institute, they're like, whatever attention is on you, we cannot make it go away. They tried and they tried and they tried. They're like, this is too much. I even worked with a shaman medicine person who tried to clear this, and they're like, no, it goes beyond what we're able to do. Like, you're gonna have to like confront it. It's way bigger than anything that a healer can help you with.
Yeah.
So, and this is, it's bigger picture because this is a planetary system that's been invaded. This isn't something that you can just snap away with like a crystal or some sound healing. This is taking a whole group of us to come together to defy the divide and conquer tactics, to be in unity together, to pull together our resources of information, of knowledge, of all the different pieces that we've been tasked with bringing light to and shedding light on, to then recover these lost memories of our galactic history, of our DNA, of who we truly are. What we don't learn in schools, what has been kept from us, that make it so easy for people to go down the trajectory of this alternative 3 scenario and then find itself being wiped out or being compromised into what we're seeing today. So what's happening today is, in calling all this out and all of us doing this work, it offers people way more of a choice than they would have had if we didn't come down and do this and we didn't play the roles that we play. So it's just helping on a physical plane of the earth level. Not to say that, we don't have, earth past lives, there
Mhm.
was a strong calling to help anchor the mother arc energies, the Sophionic energies. That's why I have a strong connection with the Magdalene and the Sophionic energy, which also plays a part in, agreeing to come in, because, that's our divine blueprint. And that's a lot about what's in my book. It's not about just somebody coming in as a reincarnation of this particular being or that being. We all hold this divine inheritance within ourselves, and our higher self has experienced aspects of this to re-identify with.